Ntando, my brother, good to see you, man. How are things going there?
Going well, Chabu. Thanks for asking. Hectic as always, but yeah, glad to
Yeah.
be around and to chat to you. So yeah, it's a great way to start a weekend.
Awesome, awesome. I must say, I'm really thankful that you could make time to have a chat with me. I was very inspired by your story. Still am inspired by your story, and I thought, there's a lot we can draw from your journey to get to where you are. I mean, in your career, you started as a call center agent, and now you're an executive. And for me, that's phenomenal. And I don't think it happened by chance. So I really want us to get into that conversation to understand what are the things that you've done to really get you to where you are now, because it's a story worth telling, right? And I'm sure a lot of people will draw a lot of insights from this. So, but before we get there, maybe just give me a sense of who is Ntando, what ticks you off, what excites you, what inspires you, just so we can warm up here.
Yeah. So Ntando is a boy from a township on the outskirts of the West End called Bakersdale. Some would know it as Western area. It's nestled between Randfontein, Carltonville, and that basin in terms of the old mining towns. Spent most of my youth there. I then later on in life moved on to the Northwest with my mom. Between the Northwest, I stayed in Klerksdorp for many years, worked and stayed in Rustenburg as well, picked up Setswana along the way, got married when I was down there, got educated down there as well for a big part of my life. Um, and that look, essentially, I'm the middle child of five boys in total in the family. So you can imagine the type of child I would have had with five brothers, and being the middle one is always quite interesting to be part of that aura. Um, Look, I think I define myself as being quite down to earth. I'm quite I'm God fearing. I've got a background with that because of my mom and my grandmother who instilled that spirituality within me from a very young age. Um, what gets me very excited is really people. I find that I'm the kind of person who gets energy from outside of myself. So I need to be around people. I need to be around art. I love art a lot. I love books. So those kind of things really get me rejuvenated and refreshed. Again, I'm a nature lover as well. So now and again, I enjoy a good hike, a good walk out there. Love the bush. Yeah, that's really me in a nutshell. Yeah, man, that's my simple story.
Fantastic, man. You mentioned you're God fearing due to the influence of your mom and your grandmom. I'd like to think, spirituality is one of the things that keeps people grounded and actually informs partly how they succeed or don't succeed in life. Can you give me a sense of how that has played a role in your life? How has it helped you?
So I think above all else, your identity gets centered on the right things when you have a spiritual background. When you understand that your existence has got meaning, when you come to appreciate that you are a small speck of dust, to be honest, in a world and a beach really of amazing things, and yet there is someone who's bigger than you, who actually who pays attention to your life and who is invested in helping you. That in itself is an awesome thought, a humbling thought, to be honest, and it helps you grapple with feelings of fear, which we all have, feelings of doubt. It helps you work through stress, pressure. It helps you understand people better. It helps you give grace when people have wronged you, because you understand that grace has been given to you and extended to you all your life. And that really is the role I see in terms of that spiritual background. It centers you in a world that is very busy, that is really pulls you in on all fronts, especially in your development years. I mean, we all have experiences in high school. We all have made mistakes there. But I think at the end of the day, if you don't have a spiritual center, I find it very difficult to imagine how much more difficult it should be to sort of navigate your way through those kind of situations without some sort of a spiritual anchor.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. What part of what I'm hearing from what you said is how that helps you, I suppose, engage with people with a grace element, if I can put it like that, which I think goes a long way in driving towards someone's career success. If you go back to those early days when you were a call center agent, can you take us there, bring us in the scene, what's happening, how are you engaging with people in such a way that you get identified as someone who has high potential to, progress within the company?
Yeah. So firstly, let me say that I ended up in the call center by accident, so to speak. It was a series of unfortunate events in terms of not being able to continue my varsity for that year. And I ended up having to sort of give that up because of funding reasons and having to sort of say, I need a stopgap, I need to do something at the moment, and I need to sort of contribute somehow to the family financially. And that sort of compelled me to go out there and look for something. And then I ended up at the doorsteps of the call center. I put in my CV, not expecting much, to be honest. Got called back, I think, the week after that. Went in, did the tests, was successful. I was surprised. And the next thing, I'm in there. And to be honest with you, the experience of starting as a call center agent, it took me a good 2 years to honestly step up. And in that 2 years, I think I probably thought the most about who I am. I grappled the most about, the big questions of my direction. Where am I going? Why do I need to do it? More than any other place. But I equally learned the most about people and the environment I was finding myself in. And I could measure, the opportunity that was in front of me at that point in time. And I think those 2 years really helped to mold me and make me understand some people around me. And look, essentially, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't a top performing call center agent. I always tell people, people ask me all the time, like, no, I wasn't the top performing agent. I was never that. What I was is I was a very, present, jolly, enthusiastic and positive character in the call center. Now, think about it this way. We had, I'm estimating, 200 people in the call center, right? But everyone knew me. So everyone somehow got to know of or knew me because I was the guy who was encouraging people who were coming in who were new. I was the guy to show you the ropes around. I was the guy who was talking to managers about how they could do things better. I was the guy who lobbying for social events the next weekend. I was the guy saying, but why do we have to do things this way? So I was that kind of person. I was really outspoken. I saw opportunities everywhere, engaging people all the time. I wasn't afraid to talk to managers about what I thought we could do better. And that primarily is what got me noticed, so to speak. After a while, I started thinking about, well, maybe I need to do something formal to sort of use what I've got better and contribute different to the business. And it's at that point, I guess, when the step up happened in terms of some performance improvements, thinking clearer through what I want to do, within the business, being aware of the example I was setting, and all those things really got me noticed. I had a number of people started saying things to me like, you've got to think about applying for a position. You've got a supervisor opening, go and apply. And I never did. But eventually someone said to me, you've got to get this done. Almost forced my hand into it. And that's the first time I actually saw people believed in me more than I sort of saw what they couldn't see. And I applied, and yeah, the story just unfolded from there on.
That's fantastic, man. I really love that. One thing you mentioned is how you were the jolly person. You were the one who's helping people around the office. And I think again, that speaks partly, one, of your character, but two, the energy that you bring in an environment. And sometimes it's something that we forget. A lot of young people, young professionals may forget about that and focus on the technical delivery and just let these other soft things just fall by the wayside. But in actual fact, it plays a huge role, like how you integrate with people, how you interact with people. Was that a conscious decision on your part, or it's something that just came naturally? You just felt, look, this is who I am. I need to express who I am.
In the beginning, it certainly was simply a manifestation of my comfort level. My space of comfort is where I'm conversing with people, I'm engaging things, I'm enthusiastic and optimistic. That's really my comfort zone. But after a while, I thought through it. And I think what you said just now is really, really important. I think especially for an aspiring leader, someone young who is a young graduate coming into any work environment. I think it's so important for you to be conscious of what kind of energy you bring into that environment. I mean, so to me, it proves, the old saying true when they say, culture eats strategy for lunch. It's true because essentially what is going to get you out there is more than just your technical ability, because there's a number of people who could bring in the technical skills that you've got, and sometimes even the experience. But it's how, when you walk into an environment, how do you contribute to make that environment better? How do you consciously decide to be a positive influence in those surroundings? And that for me is something that is essential. And I've seen throughout my career, I've seen a lot of people who are incredibly smart, incredibly gifted, technically sound. They've got all the skills you can imagine, but their influence on the environment is so negative that it really closes the doors, and it doesn't enable them to do what a leader should be doing, which is you define the environment, you lead the way through how you do things, the example you set. But certainly, I think that point is crucial. And I think at any level and at any point in your career, it is still relevant, but far more so for individuals who are coming into a work environment or any environment. I mean, I imagine even if you are in sports and it's your first day coming into the team in the locker room, it's what kind of influence I bring on board. Those are the kind of things that I think are not said enough, but have got a massive, have got massive implication for people's for our growth and development.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. And one thing you mentioned there is that as a leader, you need to be conscious of what influence you are bringing in an environment. And it's said to say that most people, or at least some people, may not see themselves as leaders, and hence, consciousness of influence and persuasion and, contribution may not be something that they actively pursue, and probably it works against them. Of course, leadership is not just having a team under you. There's an element of personal leadership, which I think starts. Everything starts from there. In your perspective, and based on your experience, you mentioned during the first 2 years, you were kind of like rediscovering yourself, searching yourself, purpose, which in some ways speaks to personal leadership. Can you take us there? What were some of the questions that you were asking? What were you wrestling with internally that eventually helped you step up to a place where you could now, integrate and make a difference?
So one, remember from my high school experience and that first year of varsity, I was, as much as I was outspoken, I was influential, but I was never the guy who took on leadership roles. I mean, to give you a practical experience, in my last year in high school, I was nominated to be the head boy of my school. Didn't accept it because deep down, I really felt, no, man, I'm not this leader, dude. I'm not the kind of guy who's going to stand at the gate and make sure that people are, dressed to the T and they're compliant. Not me. I didn't feel that way. So I never saw myself as a leader. So in those first 2 years, I had to first and foremost understand my positioning, which is exactly where am I going. So that's the first question. Where am I going? I mean, I'm 19 at the point in time, still feel very, very young, middle child, my older brother doing their own things. I'm thinking to myself, but where am I going? So what is my purpose? What's my calling deep down? What energizes me? What makes me give, what burns that fire in the belly type of thing for me? And those are the questions I was grappling with. I then came across, and I can't remember exactly how I got this book, Someone might have given it to me. I can't remember, but I ended up getting a book by John Maxwell. I think the book is about the 4 pillars of leadership. And man, that book changed my perspective completely, because the very first chapter in the book is challenging you to see yourself as a leader. It essentially says, look, it's not about your position. Are you a person of influence? And then you sort of, and he actually gives you examples of, listen, here are the examples of what I mean by influence. And that's, I mean, the needle dropped. And from that point on, I kind of realized that actually this could be something I'm good at. I slowly started to consciously now influence the environment. And I started to see things changing. I started to see managers sort of implement some of my ideas. I started to see people sort of aligning themselves to things I'd said before. And that sort of said to me, look, there's definitely something in there. There's something about you that could be worth thinking about in terms of being a leader. And those are the kind of things I was sort of grappling with at a point in time. And then in my mind, like a seed, you plant a seed somewhere, it germinates for a while before something happens. I mean, for those 2 years, in my mind, I see. I think I was a seed sort of just germinating a little bit, thinking about what.
Awesome, awesome. And I personally believe leadership is a journey, which is something you have to consciously get on with, and it never ends in terms of developing to the next level and the next level. What are some of the things that you've done or are doing to lift you to that next level of leadership?
Shouldn't surprise you to say that reading is the bedrock of how I grow. Not only because I enjoy reading, but I think from that experience of that first book on leadership, defining and clarifying things for me the way it did, there's bound to be that I was going to be the guy who was going to be reading a lot of stuff. So I'm the kind of person who reads a lot. So I go out there looking for material, for books in particular. I engage a lot with what you term business or economics journals. So I love sort of engaging with those kind of things. It's challenging reading sometimes because it's concepts that I'm still learning, for example, I'm still engaging with, but it's great because it gives me practical examples of what I'm trying to sort of get to. Another thing that I think is important is just appreciating and looking for indirect examples and mentors around you all the time. So from the earliest days, like I said, I was never scared to engage with people who are leaders and managers, to suss out their thoughts, get their opinions, get their views, ask them tough questions. I've done that throughout my career. So I always look around and sort of see good influences, engage in those conversations, and go out looking for those kind of things. So I'm the kind of person who would call someone who I've never spoken to before. I'm calling for purposes of building and learning and building a bridge, learning something. That's the kind of things I do. At the moment, I've had a mentor now for the past 2 years, formally. He's a gentleman who sits on one of the boards of the banks, someone who has been a CEO before, very different from me. I mean, he's Greek, for example. He's different background altogether. He's much older than I am. So we come from completely different backgrounds, but I'm learning so much from him, and exposing myself and challenging myself to things that and stretching, how I see things, and stretching my capabilities through using him as a soundboard, and as a way to sort of clarify my thinking. So these are some things I do. I'm very conscious about what I put into my mind. So from the music I choose, the YouTube videos I watch, the journals I read, the newspaper I buy, the friends I have around me, the TV shows that I watch and stream, all these things for me I'm conscious about. It should be something that adds value somewhat to me and develop something in me, not simply about the thrill of watching it. There's got to be something in there that that helps me. Even movie selection sometimes in my household is very complex. So I'm the designated movie selector. I'm the movie critic in the household. So that's my other job. So what I do, you'll see it on weekends, I sort of start thinking about, okay, for this weekend, this is the family movies we're gonna watch. This is the movies with only myself and the wife. are my movies only, and I select those. And throughout the process, I'm looking for reviews, I'm looking for something in there that helps my kids, my wife, myself sort of learn something. And that's fun for me because it's one of the things that I do. It's silly, but I mean, it's one of the things I think I do consciously, to try and sort of learn something out of what is out there.
I love that, my brother. That's so powerful. You're speaking about reading, YouTube videos, and many other mediums that you engage in to draw things that can help you get to your next level. For an executive like you who's very busy, has got a family, doing other stuff outside of work, it sounds like you may not have enough time to read as much as you say you do. How do you make time for that? Do you have a program? Do you have daily disciplines? How do you approach that?
Someone who reads better than me and who reads more books than I do said to me once, the best way to read material, and a lot of material, is to have a lot of books around you all the time. So when I go to my bathroom, I've got books there. In the living room, there's books there. In my car, there's books there. In my bag, there's books there. In my church bag, there's books there. So everywhere, there's books. On my side lamp, there's books there. So essentially, what I do is I smother myself with as much opportunity and temptation to read as possible. What it does is it subconsciously, it creates accidental opportunities for me to engage in my books. So throughout the weekend, throughout the day, there'll be an opportunity somehow to read. In my office, there's books everywhere. So what it does, it helps me find, those few minutes to read something. And that for me is one of the things, well, call it tricks I use to be able to sort of read a lot more. The other thing I do is, I think we all have some sort of downtime. I'll give you a good example. When I sort of drive somewhere to work, right now 3 times a week. Before it was obviously more, but whenever I drive to work, drive anywhere, audiobooks are a must-have. So I'm a believer that you've got to at least get an audiobook into the car and you're listening to it as you drive. You're fulfilling two things at once. So that's for me some examples, a trick I sort of use, sort of also fill the void of wanting to read material. I think also, I also have a discipline now, not a discipline, but I have a habit of when I am going through, for example, my emails and I'm sort of cleaning up my inbox, I'm trying to plan my day, plan my week and so forth. I'm playing something on YouTube on the phone on the side. And I mean, I find nuggets of really good stuff out there. I mean, there's a lot out there. I'm going to mention it now because then I don't want to promote other people's stuff. so you'll
It's okay. If it helps us, we need to hear about it.
No, I mean, I'll give you a couple examples. So if you think about a platform, like there's something called the FNB Leadership Series. They've got some incredible videos there of top guys. I mean, you have Sizwe Ngasana to Bongani Nwababa, all these guys in there. I mean, it's probably an hour of good wisdom. You could stream Bloomberg Technology. I mean, they've got some incredible interviews in there. There's Bloomberg Studio One. You will get the best tech people sitting there, top CEOs, young people as well. I mean, blowing your mind about what's out there. So there's those kind of nuggets that are out there as well, which sort of lean on sometimes as I do my thing. Then lastly, there's a more formal way that I do sort of get the reading done. So I've got an app where I schedule my day with reminders, and essentially in there, I think I've bought out the about a 45-minute slots from about, I think it's about 9 o'clock to about just before 10 o'clock, which is my reading time. It's not always every day that I do it, but I try and sort of meet that timeline for that to consciously get it done. Equally in the weekend as well, it plans my day for the weekend. And over the weekends, I've got time to set aside for reading as well. So it's those kind of things that are helpful. And equally with my mentor, we set up time every month to go and talk, whether on a Zoom platform for coffee. So we buy out the time. It doesn't mean when we talk, it's always like a formal thing and I've got a list of questions. No, but we consciously decide to make time for each other. And we buy out that 1 hour a month and we make sure that we live up to it and we and we plan our month around sort of an hour. And so that, for example, is something that we've been doing for the last 2 years, and I find that to be really invaluable, to me at least, in terms of learning and growth. So those are the kind of things that I would mention in terms of those tricks and ways that I've found to be working for me.
Brilliant, man, brilliant. With regards to your mentor that you referred to, I think most people would appreciate that having a mentor is something very valuable for personal and career or business development or growth. But you need to have the right mentors, got the right experience, and usually that may be someone who's maybe outside of your circle and probably far from your reach. Was that the case for you? How did you approach your mentor? How did you persuade them to actually take you on as someone they can invest their time into?
So 2 points. One, I've always had mentors around, even if they didn't know that they were mentoring me. And how I did this is I sort of, when I use the word trick, I trick people into sort of building a relationship, but I know that subconsciously they're helping mentor me. And it wasn't always one person. It was a series of people who were strong in different areas, which I felt could help me. For example, I have mentors who are very strong on and who help me with my spiritual journey. I mean, they're God-fearing men with thriving families, leaders of their families, who deal with complex family stuff that I think I want to get better at being a leader in my family. So this is the kind of person I'll sort of gravitate towards. And how I do it is it's simply about me making the effort to reach out and start to build a relationship of sorts. And that over time, it's not going to be in the next month, but over time starts to morph into more meaningful conversations. We get to be comfortable with each other, we become a bit more vulnerable, and that allows for a genuineness of the conversation. And then we can tackle some really deep stuff, which helps me, and I hope helps them as well. So I don't believe in one mentor. I believe in a series of people around you. I believe that you shouldn't if you really feel uncomfortable formalizing a mentoring relationship, don't force it, but go out there and build a relationship. And that will morph into something greater, as long as in the back of your mind you're clear about where you want to go. And people will see it in you. They will see your enthusiasm, they'll see your making the time, they'll see your efforts. And I mean, I don't know of anyone in my life, I've never come across anyone who doesn't appreciate a young, enthusiastic person who has a craving for learning. That is an attractive quality. Anyone who craves learning, who's humble enough to want to learn, it's super attractive. And I think that's something that you should be always developing and put it out there, and people mentor you. Then my second point on, for example, my current mentor. Firstly, I had gone through a lot of research about how do I get the right mentor. Like I was struggling with getting someone in the corporate world who isn't tied to my organization, who will have an unbiased view of what I do and who I am, and and I want someone different from me, or someone who came from a different background. I was looking for that. Then in my quest to sort of research and read stuff and go everywhere, I came across something interesting. An organization called the National Mentorship Network. Never heard of them. And these guys said, look, drop us a mail. We'll get you on a platform. We'll link your LinkedIn profile in there, and then we'll match you. I'm like, sounds too good to be true, but look, I'll give it a shot. I need someone. I did that. And a month or two later, I might have forgotten about it. I get a mail saying, we've matched you to a mentor. Please, here's the person's profile on LinkedIn. Tell us if you are interested in having an exploratory conversation with them, sort of see if you guys, there's any kind of, chemistry that might morph into something greater. Looked at his profile. I was very impressed. To myself, why is he wanting to mentor me? So at the time, I think I was the head of operations in Joburg. So why does he mentor me, this guy? But anyways, so have some courage. Went in, met up with him, And lo and behold, I mean, the chemistry is amazing. First and foremost, he's an Arsenal supporter, like I am. There's very few of us out there, but he's one, so it was like a match made in heaven. Two, he shares my philosophy around people, around leadership. He's a patriot. He's very he's invested in the success of this nation. He's got a very lengthy background of having done some incredible things for a series of young people. I mean, when I talk to other people about him, it's always like glowing reviews. So all of that for me was it sort of worked out. But what I'm saying is there's those two ways I think you can reach out there and find people to sort of help you out.
And what do you guys discuss when talk to each other in a mentoring session, or just casually? What topics do you focus on?
Yeah. Again, the beauty of the network, this national mentoring network, was that for the first 6 months, they gave us call it a roadmap, which essentially involved things like, in your first meeting, here are the kind of things that you must be looking to sort of discuss and talk about. Be clear about your objectives. Why you're looking for a mentor in the first place. Talk about your profile and your background a little bit. Talk to us about what level of support are you expecting from a time point of view, effort, and so forth. In the next 2 meetings, it was now prepare for the meeting. So be clear about when you go to the next meeting, what are you grappling with you would like to have insights on? What type of topics and subjects are you thinking about? And the more you create a trust with your mentor, the more natural topics become. So I agree in the beginning, you have to be very structured about it. You got to prepare well for it. You got to sit back and think through your month, your year, your week, and say, what are the kind of things that I'm sort of seeing in my own life, in my corporate world that I might need a mentor on? And also be very clear about, are you looking for a mentor purely to play a role in your work life? In other words, to give you views from that perspective? Or are you by and large open to sort of talking about, the whole full spectrum of your life? Once you have that clear, I think the questions, the things you grab become a little more natural. Yes, first couple of months, I think be on the side of being formal and prepared and think through things. The last thing you want is to start off a mentoring relationship on a back foot where you go in unprepared and you're wasting someone else's time. I think that's the easiest way to kill that relationship altogether. It doesn't build trust and credibility. So I'd say for the first couple of months, over prepare. From there on, it starts to come naturally. In fact, we're at a point now where I call him sometimes every week because and I call him for other things, I call him for different things, other things I'm sort of seeing. I call him to sort of check up on his son. If I know that the wife was ill, at some point I'm going to check, hey, how's she doing? Those kind of things that you're sort of engaging with after a while. But in the beginning, for sure, I mean, keep it structured, keep it formal, prepare very well, prepare your mind about what you want out of a relationship. How big you want to go, how vulnerable you want to go into the relationship. I think those are the kind of things that I would say are good principles to sort of build that sort of partnership on.
Yeah. Let's come to your current position as an executive. If you reflect back, what would you say were some of the key drivers that helped you get to an executive position? What does it take to get to an executive position?
Sure. That's a heavy question. I think there are some non-negotiables. The non-negotiables in my mind, I think, were technical skills. Obviously, you've got to have that. Competency, you've got to have that. Credibility within your organization, and most importantly, outside your organization is very, very important. I'll talk about that later on if I have a chance. Confidence is essential. You don't want your organization to be nervous about whether or not you are doing things out of fear or out of not having an independent mind. So confidence is for me really essential. In my mind, those things for me are the non-negotiables. Those things are you've got to have them. It's standard. It's for everyone. There's no special thing about those ones. The other things that I think personally have gotten me to where I am, I think first and foremost, I cannot emphasize or underestimate the role that grace plays. People talk about luck a lot. I talk about grace a lot because I think essentially the journeys we all walk somehow morph into clear examples where you feel that you know it should not have been me, but somehow grace intervenes and it is you. So grace for me is very big part of why I'm here. Two, I think a very supportive structure from your family is essential. Whatever or however your family is put together, it doesn't matter. What's important is your family supportive of that journey? And the support will manifest in different ways. There are times when, for example, when you are married, you will have to give more to support your wife's professional career than she would. There's a point in your life where she will do a bit more than you would do, and that understanding in the marriage is really essential. And so having that kind of support that is there for you, that you can sort of gravitate back to, is really important. I think as well. Um, I I I mean, I always try at least to put myself out there to learn from other people. So I've always sort of wanted to keep that quality of wanting to be an eager beaver learner out there. So I've always been unashamed to be the person out there asking questions, wanting to learn. So I think your ability to want to learn is key. There's also for me your willingness to take on tough challenges. So if you ask me, give us stories or examples of practical things you've done over the years that have gotten you here. I think number one for sure, I'm the guy who has been willing and ready and volunteered to take on the most difficult tasks in the business. The kind of tasks that everyone else felt is either beneath them, too difficult, too complex, or unattractive. That's where I want to go. So I've been the kind of person throughout my career. Now, what that has meant is it has been disruptive. Yes, I mean I've had to move out to move and uproot my family 3 or 4 times in my career because of it. The willingness to want to get and do those kind of the dirty jobs, as it were. I think it's really been something that's been helpful to me. I also think that the importance of articulating your vision to your boss constantly is important. From from many years ago, I made it a habit that number one, my boss has to make the time for me at least twice a year to talk to me about how am I doing, and in that conversation, we have to be very clear about me expressing where I want to go, and making clear and revisiting my career goals, and me gently reminding him of whatever his role is in that relationship. And that's something I've been unashamed about. I've done it so many with all of my leaders. I do it quite regularly, and that's been helpful because bosses and leaders are human beings. Work gets busy, pressures come, things change, the business sort of moves and adjusts to a changing environment. And if you're not confident enough to have a conversation, not about money or necessarily, it's about your career growth, your intentions, where you want to go, and use and almost use your boss to sort of have a role to play in that and make it clear what that is. That for me has been some of the things that I think have been quite helpful in getting me here.
I think that's very powerful. Um, I would like to believe that a lot of professionals see getting to executive level as a huge achievement, a big milestone in their career. But if I had to ask you, what is so different about being an executive versus any other role in an organization? What does an executive do? What is expected of an executive? What is that executive position all about?
Yeah. I think the first difference is probably in the complexity of decisions you have to take as an executive. Um, at any other level in the organization, you are primarily executing a strategy. So whether you are a frontline worker, middle manager, supervisor, first line, doesn't matter. You are involved in executing a strategy. As an executive, first and foremost, you define what the strategy is. And that in itself is a huge responsibility because it essentially means you are making decisions about other people's careers. You're making decisions about the structure that affects other people. You are deciding about what the future should and will look like for your team. And you're making a leap of faith about how we collectively as a team will help deliver that. So it's a huge responsibility. It's the first thing. On top of that, there are a range of complex decisions that you must now make as a result of that. And the most complex and the most difficult decisions will always be people-related ones. I think, the complexity of making other technical decisions in any organization is far easier than the decisions that will keep you awake at night are the ones about people. And that essentially is the difference. The weight on your shoulders, the responsibility to set the direction, the complexity of what you're doing, that already on its own sets you apart as an executive. Then there's the more, the undercurrent of the almost the silent parts of what makes that role different. These are, first and foremost, your relationships with your peers who are fellow executives is very different. At this level, you find people with a lot of ego. You find people who have their careers and a lot of investment behind the roles they have, super territorial. You will deal and grapple with sometimes legacy issues that you know nothing of, but which now influence the conversations and the interactions you are having with your peers at the table. And not to mention that you are suddenly in a position where you are so close to the office that makes the organization defining decisions, and that you feel the importance of your voice and the importance of what you say or don't say. So that changes altogether. So you're going to grapple with that element as an executive. Not to mention that as an executive, you unfortunately or fortunately, you are put out there as an example for your organization. You are the embodiment of whatever the values are in your organization. You are when other employees talk about your organization, they actually have you in their mind as the personality of what they mean. So whatever negative press, negative views, whatever unhappinesses, compliments, anything about your organization affects you directly as an executive because you are part of the team that sits right there. And so for me, those are the key differences in terms of what's involved with being an executive. Maybe the final one, which is also one of those, undercurrent and silent one is, especially when you are sitting in the boardroom as an African person in South Africa, in the context of our nation, in the context of our history, in the context of the struggles we still have as a nation, you unfortunately can't be an African executive on that boardroom who doesn't make an effort to bring to the fore and articulate issues of transformation, issues around how we treat people better. You've got to be the person who brings tough topics out there around, how does the strategy live up to the national agenda around transformation. So those are the additional things that suddenly as an African executive, you must also now, are expected at least, to bring to the fore. I don't think it's an unfair expectation. I think it's very fair. How we all do it will obviously all be different, which is very good. It's supposed to be different. However, it has to be part of what consumes our at least our time and our views.
I love that. I think what you've said is so powerful. One mistake I've seen that some people make in their careers or professions is, when they get to the next level, they let their guards down and have a I've arrived mentality, which can be very destructive. How do you avoid that temptation, right? How do you make sure you're always on your feet? You keep upping the standard, getting to the next level. What sort of frame of mind do you have that helps you continue to deliver at that high level?
Again, I don't want to be preaching, but again, when you've got a background in that's solid spiritually, and you, for example, engage with the Bible a lot, we've got tons of examples in the scriptures of that type of mentality and how destructive it can be when you adopt it. So those examples, those reminders are helpful. I'll tell you that much. That's one. Two, I think you have to constantly make an effort to be clear that the dreams and the goals you have are so scary, are so huge, are so important that you never feel really comfortable that you are doing all of these you need to do. You've got to be deliberate about getting yourself uncomfortable with just how big you are dreaming. And if the size of your dream is that heavy and that big, it's very difficult to not keep working hard. It's very difficult to slack back. It's very difficult to get comfortable because your dream compels you to do better. It always looks at you and says to you, you're okay. You're okay. You're not there yet. You've got to do this other stuff. And that for me is essential. So it's how you define your dream. It's how you define where you're going. The bigger, the better. And if that's the case, you've got something to make you uncomfortable. And lastly, don't underestimate the importance of accountability partners in your life. A wife or a husband who knows your dream, who will say to you, yeah, quite honestly, I think we're slacking here. We need to get better here. You've got to get better at this. Someone like that is also quite key as your support structure and keep you accountable. And equally, again, your network of friends and people around you have got to be the kind of friends who have the courage and who know that you have the willingness to take, that kind of criticism under your stride and will make you better. But those kind of things are, I think for me, are essential to get you out there. And again, it's almost impossible for you to read as widely as maybe as I do, for example, without feeling I must do more. Because you'll come across so many things you're thinking, yeah, look, I must get better. And that's the point. Those kind of things are really meant to make you get you out of the comfort zone and drum out this feeling of wanting to be a bit more complacent.
I love what you're saying about reading widely and having a scary dream or a scary vision, something that looks almost impossible for you to achieve. You've mentioned that reading widely is one of the things that helps you get to that state of mind where you have goals that are just too large or scary. Are there other things that people can do to have that grand vision that keeps them going?
Sure. I think we're all different. So we all sort of inspired by different things. It's important for you to know what turns your crank from an inspiration point of view. I'll give you some examples in my family, for example. I mean, of the five boys, the two youngest boys in the family are really, really, these are artistic individuals. What inspires them is very different what inspires me. So I've learned over the years not to compel them to take my books and go read. I know they're not going to do it. So I'm relying on, and I know that what gets them there is they get inspired by life and art they see around them. So they have to, for example, and this is the lesson, be in a space and in a zone that just defines for you how big your dream should be. When I was younger, I used to sort of when I bought my first car, I used to drive around in a neighborhood in Rustenburg where the wealthy people were. they call it safari gardens. I used to walk or drive around there, and it helped to, in my mind, to construct a physical example of where I want to get to. So it's important for you to go there where you think this is really where your vision must take you. If you're an art, if you're an artistic person, it could be in music, it could be in paintings, it could be to go to an art gallery, it could be talking to someone who is at that level. It's those kind of things I think are important to get you in a zone that helps you clarify that big, scary vision that's out there for you. Another way I think of doing it is the old school envisioning process. I mean, there's a number of books that are out there about, how to envision where you want to go and how to make that vision, even as you envision it, almost real to you. That's something that I find powerful and I find to be helpful. And I know, very successful athletes talk about it a lot. Before they take the punt in the golf course, before they hit a free kick, they envision what is to happen. It's a powerful thing. If you can get at least to that level, I think it helps to craft where that should be. And to your question, I think it's important because there are people coming from my background, especially maybe even your background. You come from a place that doesn't, where all you see dreams dying around you. In the townships, for example, you have to find a way to see thriving visions. And the only way to get that done sometimes is to take yourself, if not physically, at least take yourself mentally out of that space. And that's what I mean by envisioning, what I mean by go to the place that gets you there, whether it's music, whether it's it's a place where you can really get that in. It's get there. So you can sort of envision and see the dreams that you.
And what are some of those books that you referred to earlier that speak about how to envision, how to go through that process?
Yeah, there's a book called. I have an audio book. I have never seen a copy of it, but I'm sure it's out there. There's a book called The Secret. It's very fluffy. It's not an easy read. And I would advise that you read it at your own leisure. But in there is a huge chapter on envisioning. I think it's something that they share. It's quite prominent as part of the success strategies within the. So it's quite prominent in there. Okay. I think it doesn't hurt to also spend some time on the book called Coaches. Is the name of the book. It's stories of 6 or 7 South African coaches, but successful ones. And every one of those guys will talk about envisioning. In fact, I forgot her name now. There's a world-renowned doctor from South Africa who taught the Springbok team of 2007 how to use envisioning to win at the World Cup. And so it improves things like purview, and you see things that you normally wouldn't see in a game, for example. All of these, I think, for me, are things that are applicable to all of us. It just helps to sort of, define and solidify your direction.
Okay, thanks for that. That's brilliant. I know that in terms of people progressing from one level to the next, or what you'd call success, there are specific things that people can do. I suppose that would be one of them. What are some of the daily disciplines or weekly disciplines that you've instilled in your program that ensure that you keep oiling the machine, you keep moving along?
Spot on. It's a very important question, and one that is not asked often enough, I think, by people who, especially young people who want to, use your word, succeed. Your success is actually in the daily disciplines and habits that you've got, which is the point you're trying to make. And from where I'm sitting, the key ones are: 1, I have a habit of waking up in the wee hours of the morning. So normally my alarm goes off at 4:45. I sort of decided that when I wake up for 15 minutes, I'll spend time thinking about it. From 5 o'clock, I then start, I'm awake. And the first thing I do is spend time in meditation. I've got a meditation app that helps me with that. I do meditation on Headspace, and I have another app now called Let's Meditate. And I'll choose the meditation I want for the day. So there's different ones. So it'll depend on the day and how I'm feeling, whatever it is. That might be 15-minute max. From there on, it's time for a bit of prayer and Bible reading. At about 5:30, I'm sort of preparing now to sort of get to prepare I prepared my son. I'm preparing myself on the other side, sort of get out of the way. As I'm doing that, I'm already on my YouTube, sort of listening to something, an interview or something of that nature. I hit once I'm out, I leave the house around normally after 6. When we leave the house to go through, I'm already sort of in the car. An audio book is on. I'm having a side chat with my son on the way. We get and then small things, right? Throughout the day, I'm listening to something on YouTube as I do my work. Afternoons, I do a jog at about, I hope, so my plan is to be at home by 6. It doesn't always happen, so I must say that up front. So when it does happen, so 6 o'clock, I do a jog for about half an hour or so. I'm back in and it's time for homework and etc. 9 o'clock, it's reading time. There's time with the wife after that. So we sort of chat and catch up on the day. Late in the day, again, I do some reading of scriptures there and there. And if it's a Wednesday, I'm preparing for the family study the following day. So we do a family Bible study on Thursday. So I'll prepare for it as well at night on the Wednesday. It's those kind of things that I kind of do daily that get me there. I must be honest, I would want and I would like to have more physical exercise in my daily habits and agenda. It is very difficult. It's an area in my life I struggle with, I'll be honest with you. So it's something that I sort of need to sort of get better at. But again, it's days and days, because I know I'm struggling with it. I now schedule it, and I now have to find ways and people around me to help me get there. My wife is very good at that, so I sort of have to gravitate towards her direction to sort of get me where I need to. So it's all those kind of learnings along the way.
Yeah, for someone who's as busy as you with a lot of responsibilities, time is very, very precious. So I'm curious to know, how long do you sleep?
I actually have a healthy sleep. I hit the sack at about 10:30. Is my plan. And like I said, I'm up at 5. So I think that's good enough. I think it's a healthy sleep. And obviously on weekends I make an effort to sleep a bit longer. So on weekends, I'm only up at about, I think it's 8 o'clock. My alarm goes at 8 o'clock. It's only then when I'm awake on weekends. So that also is I think a good habit. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I don't subscribe to the school of thought that you've got to sleep 4 hours to succeed. I think one, the nature of my job requires of me to be conscious, at least throughout my engagement with people all the time. I'm not staring at a screen all day. I'm engaging people all the time. So it requires me to have a level of energy that is genuine and sincere, and as it comes from internal energy, which requires that I sort of invest in a good night's sleep. Yeah, that's what I believe in. I do that. I do sort of. I think I get a healthy bit of sleep in there. Look, managing time is a complexity. It's not easy. It's a constant struggle, and every day is different. I mean, I plan for my week on Sundays. So Sundays, you'll see I'm canceling meetings, accepting meetings, moving meetings. I'm looking at what's coming up, what has changed in my plan for the month. On Sundays, I'm reflecting on the week that's been. I'm putting in new things in my calendar. But even despite that, the week doesn't always pan out the way my Sunday was meant to sort of kick off the week. So there's also an element of being flexible with how the week sort of pans out and making those small adjustments as the week progresses.
Fantastic. As we draw to a close, I want to ask this question. I know you are furthering your studies. Um, what are you studying and why are you studying further?
Yeah, so I've had an interesting relationship with formal education for a number of years. Like I said, I'm a varsity dropout. I started off in the call center, had to go back and finish that off, which is the BCom in management I did through UNISA in my last couple of years. I then did a small course with Gibbs called the PMD. I took the PMD because at the time I just got appointed as a head, and I wasn't too sure if I was ready for an MBA. I was kind of scared and so forth. And I thought let me sort of try Gibbs with a PMD and see. And it was really, I think, the right decision to make. It helped me quite a lot. I'm now doing the MBA. MBA, look, I mean, it's year one, so they call it the PD, the PDBA, the PG-DIP. I'm doing it because, like I said earlier, it's important to have the technical skills needed for the job. So I think an MBA gives you that opportunity. But there's also an element in the MBA that stretches me in terms of, not from a personal development point of view, the stretch in terms of the hours you must invest in it, the balancing of work and life, the requirements in terms of your regular engagements with your syndicates, the assignments, or that whole journey. It just helps to prepare for the inevitable, which is the kind of pressures that you would definitely face in the corporate world as you move on.
Brilliant, brilliant. My last question to you is, what is your big next?
Sure. So the ultimate goal is to run an organization on my own, as it were, and hopefully one that I would own. To be very honest, I will stay in corporate for quite a while because I do want to learn as much as possible in corporate. I've got a few goals I want to achieve in corporate in terms of profile and getting to bigger roles. But ultimately, man, I would really love the family to do a lot of good out there in the world through a formal organization that is dedicated towards achieving some of those things that are linked to what I believe is my purpose and our family's purpose. And that's really what ultimately sort of trying to build towards.